Ken Coleman is a 3-time best-selling author, Ramsey personality, and host of The Ken Coleman Show.
I'm going to give you some phrases that signal you might be experiencing a layoff. Uh-oh. A study reveals that employee turnover, which is big right now, it's preventable. Will help you leaders figure out how to do it next.
He'll dive into what's truly on the minds of your team members so you can lead with purpose.
There's a reason why a lot of the greatest coaches in the NFL didn't play in the NFL. And there's a reason why the greatest players don't become coaches. They're not wired for it. My fear and my doubt is driven by uncertainty. So what do? Get certain. Leaders and managers need to meet 3 primary human needs with their employees. They are
All right, well, welcome back to another episode of The Curious CEO. Today, I'm joined by Ken Coleman, a 3-time best-selling author, Ramsey personality, host of The Ken Coleman Show, and more importantly, has become a really, really good friend of mine. Now, every week, Ken takes calls from listeners to help them discover their passion, navigate their workplace, and grow professionally in their careers. So today, he's going to help us as leaders understand what's truly on the minds of those that we lead. So without further ado, Mr. Coleman, welcome to The Curious CEO.
Oh, it's good to be here, Dermot. I'm so excited for what you're doing. I want to say quick congratulations because it's not easy to launch a show and a channel in today's environment where there's just so many options. Certainly, we've reached saturation. And so really excited to see how quickly the YouTube channel has grown as well. So my congratulations, friend. The world needs more of Dermot Buffini, and so do I. So I'm getting my vitamin D today.
Well, it's very kind of you to say. It's been great to see you what you're doing too, and I've been watching closely to what you and all the Ramsey folks have been doing, and you guys are making a huge impact. But your show is a little different because I always think that anytime I watch your show, I'm thinking, I wonder is anybody from Buffini calling in to talk to you. And I hope they are in some ways, because I think they'd be in good hands. Because, as leaders, and, we've had so many fun dinners, and you're this curious soul yourself and ask great questions. As leaders, we're in the human engineering business, aren't we? And you get to hear from people who are either working for great leaders or sometimes we're not working for great leaders. So let's just talk a little bit about when you're handling your calls and their callers are calling in, what type of things are they calling you about?
Well, at the end of the day, the common question is a question about confidence. In other words, when you get in and you dig and you ask questions about the question behind the question, at the end of the day, most people kind of know what decision they need to make. And so they're calling me for confidence or confirmation of what they're thinking and what they're feeling. And many times it is, should I stay or should I go? Just by the very nature of the program. And so sometimes it's, should I take a promotion? Should I go for a promotion in my company? Should I look somewhere else? Or I haven't gotten the opportunity to step on the next rung of the ladder that I have wanted. What do you think the reason is? And it's that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it is that I'm looking for confidence and it's to be able to make the right step forward for the next opportunity. So, if Nike sells inspiration and Amazon sells convenience, I sell opportunity. And this is what the human spirit longs for. When Thomas Jefferson wrote in the first line of the Declaration of Independence, the pursuit of happiness, this was not a new idea to him. He borrowed it from people like John Locke, great Enlightenment thinkers and things of that nature, and people of that nature. And Locke was influenced by Stoics. And so this was not a new idea. And I bring this up to simply say that from the dawn of mankind, there is this spirit in all of us, and we long for freedom to do as we please, to do as we choose. And so I'm just getting base level here because I think it's important to understand when we're talking to leaders that you've got to stop thinking about people that are joining your team and people that are receiving a paycheck from you as people who are just looking for a good job. They are not looking for a good job. They are looking for a better life. And you've got to understand that, I think, philosophically, and understand that that is something that resides in the spirit of every human being. And so that's what they're looking for. That's what they call. They're going, I'm not where I want to be. There's a gap between where I am and where I want to be. And I think, Ken, that I need to go this direction or this direction. And they're looking to me for that confirmation, to give them some confidence to do that thing.
I love that. Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit. Should I stay or should I go? So let's talk let's get onto the negative side and then we'll get to the good side. Okay, so you see leaders, what are the type of things that people are dealing with where leaders maybe completely unconsciously we're creating the environment for people to leave us? What are the typical symptoms of poor leadership that kind of propel people in that direction?
You aren't meeting their 3 human needs. There are 3 primary needs that Gallup has found. Gallup's the gold standard, so this is not my opinion. This is hard data, folks. So Gallup in 2019, Dermot, did the largest study that the world has ever done on employee engagement. Okay, the key word there being engagement. And we all, a true leader has got the mind of a coach. And a coach, and I grew up playing sports, a coach is watching the field of play or on the court, and they are looking at all their players, and really good coaches are looking for one thing and one thing above all. You know what it is. It's effort. And so that's our context here when we talk about engagement. Are they locked in? Are they there to play today? Or is their mind somewhere else? So Gallup went out to study employee engagement, and it was over 200,000 employees worldwide. And one of the key findings they found, Dermot, was that leaders and managers need to meet the 3 primary human needs with their employees. They are, number 1, they need to find meaning and purpose in their work. Number 2, they need to be recognized for their unique contribution. And then number 3, they want a relationship with their leader. Now I'll break these down really quick and then land the plane on the answer to your question. Meaning and purpose in the work. That's where I put most of my focus. Find the work you're wired to do, on one shoulder. On the other shoulders, from paycheck to purpose. Here's what I know. People need a paycheck and they need provision from their work, but they also long to make a difference. You don't have to teach a human being to wonder at some point in their life, why am I here? Or what should I do with my life? This is what I'm talking about when I talk about the spirit of a human. So people need to see meaning and purpose in their work. Watch what happens when they don't see that there's great meaning in their job. If it doesn't matter much to them, they begin to wonder if they matter. Very slippery slope. Okay. So they need to see meaning and purpose. So as the leader here on this one, you need to make sure that you are constantly reminding them of the why of their actual seat on the actual bus. Remind them all the time how much their work matters to the customer, and to solving the problem that this company sets out to solve. Number 2, recognize for their unique contribution. This gets back to, again, all of us. Do we matter? We're all little boys and little girls saying, do you notice me? And no longer, it's no longer mom and dad, it's my boss. Do you notice me? Do I matter? Am I lovable? And so the way we look at that is they need to be recognized for their unique contribution. And so this is publicly and privately. So you pull Dermot aside and you say, hey, listen, I'm watching what you're doing. I've noticed in your weekly reports, I've noticed here, you're really crushing it. I got word of this. You did this specifically. Phenomenal job. But don't limit it to the private conversation. Call them out in a public way, in a good way, in front of their peers. Recognize them for very specific. And it's not, hey, Dermot's doing a good job. Everybody, for he's a jolly good fellow. Not that. No. It's, hey, I want the team to understand. We're recognizing Dermot because he did this specifically, and this was the result. That's what we're talking about. Consistent recognition for their unique contribution. And then number 3, they want a relationship with their leader. Is this going out with them and having beers after office hours? No. Is this going on vacation with them? No. This is, I'm going to give you the relationship. I think it's the coach or the guide, but they're looking for that coach, that mentor type relationship. They want to know that you care about them as a person, and they want to know that you care about their success as a professional. These are 2 very different perspectives that they are looking to you to say, do you care about me? And so the answer to your question is a bad leader is not meeting those needs. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. So please understand that I'm pro leader. But if you are struggling in leadership, or rather your team is struggling under your leadership, I can tell you the reason and the solution
Yeah.
lies within meeting those 3 human needs. That's Gallup, not me, but they're right, by the way.
Yeah.
And I've got thousands of calls to prove it.
Yeah.
That I can always look back to. One or both or all 3 of those needs are not being met. And so what do people do? They leave. But they check out in spirit first, Dermot, before they leave. They actually leave the premises. And so that kills productivity and profitability.
Yeah. And no doubt has an impact on those who are left behind.
Oh, listen, the data from this, I'm glad you brought this up. Real quick, data. Coming out of the Great Resignation, which we saw the Great Resignation in 2021, and it went through, by most measures, I would say third, fourth quarter 2022. And you all saw the headlines, but it was real. 4+ million people a month, Dermot, were leaving. It was the great musical chairs, I called it. And it was causing all kinds of stress. But interesting that you say that. Even in the history of layoffs, which there's a lot of people that are really studying leadership and management, and I believe they're right, that say avoid layoffs at all costs. Because through the history of layoffs, and when someone leaves, the psychological effect, Dermot, on those that are left behind, I love that you said it that way because that's how it's used in the data. Those that are left behind, 2 major stressors happen. The stress from the extra workload, because somebody's got to catch the plates that are falling, okay? And then the stress of worry, because it is very natural with the law of mirroring. You see someone leave, you start going, why'd they leave? Did they have good reasons? Should I leave? I mean, this is a cancer. And so those 2 stressors are naturally happening when you are seeing turnover and people leaving. So the point here is you want to limit turnover. Yeah. Because to the extent that you limit turnover, you limit the stress coming from those 2 areas. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things is what's interesting, I think, about your show is, you're not creating an environment for people to call in and it's a wah-wah fest. It's not the complaint department. Your passion is for leadership. Your true passion is to help leaders grow, and you have all the ammunition in the world. And now, I think the other thing with, when a good person leaves, it really hurts. And then it gets good people to think about leaving. And then the worst thing that can happen is the people who should be leaving stay, and they hurt your business. So let's just back up a little bit here and let's get some practical tips. Okay. So first of all, why is it you think that leaders don't provide these 3 things? What gets in their way from your experience?
Well, number one, they don't know about these human needs. If I could drop a leadership leaflet to every leader in the country today out of a magical plane, it would have that little speech I gave on the 3 human needs. They don't know. They don't know what they don't know. So that's the first thing. The second thing is some of them, if they did know, they aren't healthy themselves. A sick person can only infect another person. A sick person cannot make someone healthy. And so I think we have a lot of leaders that don't want to be in leadership. What I really get irritated by, Dermot, in the American system, I can't speak internationally, but in the American system, you're about 2 to 3 promotions away from a leadership role that you don't want and you haven't been trained for. That's the reality. Now, you all do it right. I mean, you guys are so intentional at Buffini & Co. to help realtors develop leadership skills. Hello. But in the American business culture, you get 1 promotion, 2 promotion, somewhere between 2 to 3 promotions. You're going to take a high performer who's crushing it in this role, and you're going to go, okay, you're doing so good. We're going to take you out of this seat where you're producing, and we're going to put you in a seat that you don't want, and we're largely not going to train you how to do it well.
Right.
There's a reason why a lot of the greatest coaches in the NFL didn't play in the NFL. They're better coaches than they are players.
For sure.
And there's a reason why the greatest players don't become coaches. Yeah. They're not wired for it. And
Yeah.
yet here we go. So, first is they don't know how they're supposed to lead. It hasn't been modeled for them. Number one, they haven't been trained how to do it. They don't know these things like, hey, I got to meet these needs. If I meet these needs, I'm going to become the most desirable leader most of these people have ever worked under, just because I'm acting like a human. I'm nurturing, and I'm not managing. And then again, they could be very unhealthy themselves. And so I think those are the three primary reasons. And it's all of that's fixable, but it requires aware leaders who are intentional to go, all right, I'm going to train people to lead the right way. I'm going to model it. Hello. I can teach you, but if I don't model it, people are going to go, well, forget what he taught me or she taught me. I'm going to do it the way that he or she's doing it. So we got to model it. And then we got to make sure that we're healthy. I have tried to tell my audience on a regular basis, because I regularly bang on bad leadership. I talk about it in the headlines, and, it turns out to be viral stuff. I got 3 Instagram reels right now that are, one's 8.9 millions, another is 11.2, and it's all about bad leadership. But I'm pro leaders. But so while I'm quick to call out what's wrong in the world of leadership in the workplace, I'm also very quick to point out that just because someone's a bad leader doesn't make them a bad person.
Right. It's great.
And I think that's crucial, because I think the old phrase that we've all heard and we've all modeled it, hurting people hurt people. And me at my worst, it's because I'm acting from pain.
Yeah.
And me at my best means I'm acting from a place of health.
Right. And and your team know it, right? I often think it's like parenting, right? Being a parent is like being a leader, right? You become one, you're like, holy cow, like I'm in charge of this child. What do I do? I remember a couple of years ago coming to my daughter, who's now 21 and in college, and had a great relationship with her. 8, 9, 10 is great. She's cute. She loved her daddy. And then at 12, things started getting a little rough. Little attitude, little hissy fits. And that was just me, by the way, Ken. That wasn't even my daughter. Okay. And we were struggling, and things weren't respectful. And I just said to her one day, I said, hey, listen, I've figured out something. Number one is I love you. Number two is I realized that we're not getting on real well right now. And the third thing is this: you're exactly where you need to be as a 12-year-old. I am not. I'm still trying to parent you as if you were 8. So you're fine. I need to go work on me. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say with leaders, just being okay with not being okay. Because one of the things when I said that to Kate and I told her that I don't know what I'm doing, you know what she said? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, right.
So
she goes, give me something I don't know. By the way, when you admit your weaknesses, to your point, everybody on your team goes, okay, this is not a news flash to them. They go, oh, wow, okay, he's actually a decent human being and has some self-awareness and humility. And I'm going to begin to trust that a little bit more.
So let me ask you this, because you've written on other books, about the imposter factor, and as leaders, we can lead into that place very easily. It said if you get promoted 2 levels above where you should be, at some level you're going to have some level of insecurity. So how can we both, let's talk about that a little bit, just the imposter syndrome, and then how do we work out of that into this being okay with not being okay?
Yeah. Well, first of all, imposter syndrome, I hate that phrase. Let's burn it on the ash heap of history.
I love it.
Because it's just a fancy, stupid way to say doubt. And so let's, number one, understand that you aren't an imposter. An imposter is someone who's fraudulent.
That's true. Good call.
Okay. So you're not a fraud.
Yeah.
Number two, you don't have a disease. You don't have a syndrome. You have, you are in a reality. And here's what I know. If you're facing doubt, and let's throw fear into this as well, because I write and talk about both of these. These are cousins. If you are facing doubt, it's because you're attempting or you are moving forward. If you're facing fear, you are attempting or moving forward. And so fear defined is, I'm worried that something bad is going to happen if I act. Doubt is, I don't believe something good will happen if I act. They're different, but we've got to understand that first, let's let ourselves off the hook. Let's exhale and go, wait a second. I think Ken's right here. If I'm fearful or doubtful, it's because I'm attempting to actually move forward. In other words, the people of life who sit on the bleachers with their hand up to their elbow in a popcorn bucket, feeding their face and yelling at everybody on the field. I could do better than that. These are the bystanders. These are the fans of life. They sit there and they are afforded the opportunity to be critics. You can't be. And as Teddy Roosevelt so famously said in that speech that lives well beyond his life, the man in the arena, the credit belongs to the man in the arena, not the critic. And you've been to my studio now. Outside the studio in a gigantic painting is Teddy Roosevelt, and above it, it says in bold red letters, it's not the critic that counts. So let's first go, wait a second. I am experiencing fear and I am experiencing doubt because I'm attempting to move forward to do something. So that makes me not a fraud, and it doesn't make me sick. It makes me normal. Now let's move forward. This is all mindset. Now we say, okay, what's driving the fear and the doubt? And it's one word: the unknown. Unknown. I don't know something. There's something that I am uncertain of. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. Right?
Yeah.
My fear and my doubt is driven by uncertainty. So what do? Get certain to the extent that you can. You know, I had the privilege of interviewing George W. Bush and Condoleezza Rice. And in both of those interviews, I asked them both about this issue of uncertainty. And you look at a president, a national security advisor, they really represent the most intense, uncertain decisions that anyone will ever have to make, because when they're making some decisions where they cannot be totally certain that it is the right decision, lives are on the line. And here's what I'm telling you. This is how we combat fear and doubt: is we get as certain as we can. And then when we are as certain as we can be, we then must be certain that I've got to make a decision. I've got to take an action. And at that point, I take what I think is the best action or make the best decision. And now I move forward with certainty, even though I can't truly know how it's going to end up. And that's where courage comes. And that's where the big decisions of life come. So when you face that, I hope I've given the audience something real. Get down into the weeds. What am I uncertain of? What can I be certain of? Let me go find some more facts. Let me go get some more opinions. Let me get some more data. And as I get more information dealing with this unknown, then my confidence, it will rise to the place where I can be courageous. And I've said this before, what I'm giving to you is 3 C's. Clarity breeds confidence, and confidence breeds courage.
Love it.
So fear and doubt, you got to win the battle by getting as clear as you possibly can. That takes your confidence up to a level where you can then act with courage.
I love it. That's great. And I tell you what I like about that. First of all, you're talking about grace for yourself. So you're talking about grace. Like, hey, I've got doubts, and hey, I've got things to do, and I've got things to learn. But what I love about that is, you know, as a leader, you know, it's very easy to start getting out of sequence, running around fixing everybody else or pointing the finger at everybody else. What you're describing is somebody who's being vulnerable enough and have the courage enough to say, hey, here I am, good, bad, or indifferent, but I'm going to learn, I'm going to fix it, because I'm going from insecurity, potentially doubt, to acknowledging it into confidence and courage and propelling forward, which I think is inspiring to your team, because it makes it okay for them, doesn't it?
It does. And what I was describing was a very personal mindset, but I'm glad you're bringing this up. So once I've gone through the exercise that I just kind of acted out, I'm going to now take those uncertainties to the team. And what I may be uncertain of, another person goes, oh, this is what you do. And you go, I feel like an idiot. I never saw it. And to your point, yeah, there might be a solution that if you have the courage to be vulnerable and share with your team, they step in and they saw something that you were incapable of seeing. So I think that's a very good point.
Well, I like it. And so this is not a shameless plug for your book, but I love this. I love the title of your new book. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because it kind of leads into the sequence of what we're talking about, right? You're saying like, hey, well, this starts with me, right? If I can find the work that I'm wired to do, I'm going to do well. And the next thing is you can start leading your team through a process of that. And I can't think of a better way to grow yourself as a leader by knowing yourself, and then ultimately to build relationship. That third point you were talking about earlier, say like, let me find out who you are. So just, can you give me kind of like a couple of pieces about this that that
Yeah.
you think would impact this audience in just a few minutes?
Well, let me tell you what it is. So how do you find the work
perfect.
you're wired to do? So that little book right there is two products in one. You get an assessment called the Get Clear Assessment, and then the book comes alongside of you once you get your results, and I start walking you by the hand, kind of master coaching you with what you do with the results. Now, for this group of people, for leaders specifically, this is where you don't even need the book, to be completely honest. You just need the assessment and the results, because here's what the methodology is. It's going to give you a very detailed report on what you do best. It's going to give you a detailed report on what you love to do most, specific types of work. And then it's going to let you know what motivates you the most, what results. So here's the phrase: if you use what you do best to do what you love to produce a result that you care deeply about, Katie bar the door. We marvel at people like that. We go, you were born for this. If you use what you do best to do what you love to produce a result you care about, it's unbelievable. So in the actual assessment, we're looking at talent, we're looking at passion, is what we started, the work we love, and then we call it a missional result. And this is about intrinsic motivation. So there's real science behind that. Now here's what we do with that. As a leader, practically, what would you do with these assessment results? Well, first thing, it would be self-assessment, to go, as I look at my purpose statement that just gets spit out to me, I look at that. Am I spending 3/4 of my day, Derwin, doing that, using what I do best to do work I enjoy to produce results I care about? If the answer is no, ding, 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 we got to remove it, delegate it, or hire for it. Let me go back and say that, because this is as practical as I can get. I don't like to speak in maxims. I want to be real with you folks. If I'm looking at my purpose statement, which is what you get in this assessment, and it tells you top 3 things I'm good at, top 3 things I enjoy doing, and the primary result that motivates me, gets me fired up when I wake up. All right. If I'm not spending, rule of thumb here, 75% of my day doing that, I better remove it completely, delegate it to somebody else, or if I can't delegate it to somebody else because they're place, I better hire for it. And let me tell you something, that's freedom. And here's why. You are the leader of your organization. And to the extent that you aren't clear and you aren't operating in 3/4 of your day, using what you do best to do work you really enjoy to produce results you care about, your team already knows it. And you're actually the lid, as my good friend and mentor, John Maxwell, would say. And he wrote about it in the 21 Laws of Leadership, the law of the lid. And he's right. You are the lid of the organization primarily because you're holding the organization back. And they're going, I don't know why he keeps doing that. We've got Fred over here who's way better at it than him. And Fred's over there going, I don't know why he does it. If you give it to me, I could do it a lot better.
Yeah.
And so the point here is that this will reveal blind spots in your day and in your week and in your month and in your year and in your business. I mean, it's a game changer for leaders.
It is.
And then take it back to your team and go, hey, I took this assessment. I think it's pretty spot on. Do you think it's spot on?
Totally.
And boy, oh boy, watch them open up as they begin to see your vulnerability and your transparency. So that's tactically how I would use it specifically for your audience that is leading a team. And we're trying to lead a team of champions that are out there selling and producing. Boy, oh boy, you better be in the right role in that tiny organization that you're running. You better be in the right role because you're too small to get away with it.
Yeah, for sure. And also I think, at the end of the day, I'm my favorite subject at some level, as much as I don't want to admit that, right? And
I'd love to talk more about me, by the way. If you could ask me more about me, it'd be great.
Exactly. So, but at the same, I think also in today's world, especially with younger people coming in, I think if you're not into them, they're not into you.
Oh,
like
well said.
If you're not into seeing them succeed, helping them become the person, because I really do believe there's a lack of mentorship and apprenticeship in today's world, where you think, I'm just going to YouTube it. I'm just going to put it on there. I'm going to find out what I need to do. And I can't think of something better to have, as you said, like create awareness through this book for a leader, and then say, look, I've done it first and I've gone first, as every leader should. And now, hey, why don't you take this and let's have a chat about you? And then the third thing, from a business standpoint, from a dollars and cents standpoint, I love what you said. It's like, there's no point in getting something off my plate into the hands of somebody who's worse at it than me.
Yeah.
So if I have knowledge that You know, I love, there's a quick story, and you and I before we started today, I told Dave McGee to put us on to cut us off, because you and I can talk forever. But you tell a little story in here about how you escaped almost becoming a trumpet player. And also this you know, you worked hard at it, but that wasn't your calling in life, was it?
No, not at all. My dad really wanted me to play an instrument. He thought it was important for discipline and character development. And I got into it because I had to. Mistake number one that we parents and leaders do.
Yeah.
Just because we think it's good for them doesn't mean it's good for them. And my thing to parents, real quick commercial here. It's not, newsflash, it's not good for your kids unless they're good at it. In other words, yes, they can get better, but they got to have the talent. And my dad should have realized pretty quickly that I was an average trumpet player, and nobody pays for average trumpet players.
No.
I'm going to be really honest with you, in the chance of offending a lot of trumpet players that listen to this show. Nobody pays a lot for a trumpet player. Like Louis Armstrong was one in a zillion.
Right. That's it.
God bless him. He's not with us anymore. And no one stepped into that hole because, quite frankly, nobody cares. And so the idea here is that, you know, my dad wanted me to do it. And I wasn't any good at it, and I didn't enjoy it. There's the two things, parents. That's what you're looking for. If your kid's not very good at it,
Totally.
let's just say above average, if they're not even above average. And then if they're not interested in it, hey, mom, dad, let it go.
That's right.
Let it go. There's something else out there that the minute they see it, the tuning fork in the heart goes off, and now you look like a genius parent, and you're not. You just had enough courage to stop projecting your fears and your doubts and your insecurities and your past experiences on these kids.
Well, I'm sure glad you didn't become a trumpet player, and I'm glad to see you're doing what you're doing, and it's very meaningful work. And I really appreciate all that you're doing, all that you've shared today. We are going to go backstage. If you are good for hanging on for a few more minutes, Ken, we're going to go back and answer some questions from our leadership coaching clients. I know that they'll have a lot of questions for you. So if you're good with hanging on for a few minutes, we'd love to
do it.
Okay, great. For everyone else, I want to thank you for joining us today, The Curious CEO. I'd highly recommend that you pick up a copy of Ken's book, Find the Work You're Wired to Do. Have some fun with this. Be okay with what you're great at, and be okay with what you're not so great at. Take the assessment, do it with your team. And then I'd highly recommend you to tune in to the Ken Coleman Show and listen to the questions that Ken is answering as all of our de facto leaders, with all the people who are working on a team right now, who are trying to, as Ken said, live a better life. So hope you can pick up a copy of that. This is our last show of the year, and we're finishing on a high note. We'll be back in January. We'll have my guest. We're going to have John Akoff, who works with CEOs. He's a leadership expert and best-selling author, and he's going to help us set up our mindset for a great 2025. So until then, we'll see you next time. Stay curious, my friends.
Thank you for joining us on this month's Curious CEO. If you're ready to take your leadership to the next level, maybe it's time for you to work with a Buffini certified leadership coach. Our coaches will help you identify and leverage your natural leadership style, develop a strong organizational culture, improve recruiting and retention, and increase the profitability of your business. And among the benefits of our leadership coaching membership is a backstage pass to the Curious CEO that allows you to ask your questions directly to Dermot and his amazing guests. If you'd like to see if Buffini leadership coaching is right for you, schedule your complimentary leadership consultation using the URL on your screen.